Welcome back to Cast of Wonders, the fiction audio magazine for young adults featuring stories of the fantastic. Hope you didn't miss us too much over the break. We're back, so let's get started. Today we present Lizzy Viscera and the Quest for the Perfect Sandwich by Spencer Coley. Spencer tells us, "This is the first story I wrote at Susquehanna University. I'd transferred into the college as a creative writing major, and when I found out I hadn't been registered for any creative writing classes, I pledged to make up for that deficit by writing at least 2 new short stories that term. The author I most admire is Garth Nix, and after reading Sabriel, I thought about the lack of positive role models for necromancers in contemporary fiction. I also wanted to overturn that doom and gloom image that so often goes with practitioners of the craft, along with the image that female necromancers have to be model thin gothic beauties with skull bras." You can find out more about Spencer at spencercoley.com. Please check the show notes for details. Your narrator is our own regular reader, Danielle Daly. Welcome back, Danny. And now, we've a tale to tell.
Lizzy Viscera and the Quest for the Perfect Sandwich by Spencer Coley. Lizzy Viscera, necromancer, master of life and death, zipped up her Lisa Frank backpack. This was a subtle way of reminding Professor Turnipseed that class had ended 4 minutes ago. The professor was impassive. Every second was another second too much. He ignored the raised hands, pointed glances at the clock, and shifting book bags. Turnipseed wound up the last pompous tangent. He turned to the clock, feigned innocent surprise, and dismissed the class. He was lucky not to be trampled. Lizzy Viscera burst into the dining hall as if all the legions of hell, the Celtic Wild Hunt, and the NRA were after her. She waved to friends, but did not tarry in her beeline for the deli counter. She had to make up those lost minutes. The lectured tyranny of Professor Turnipseed lay behind her, and the arduous death march of intro statistics loomed ahead. Lunch hour was her me time. Lizzy drew notice. She wasn't inherently extraordinary. She was blonde-haired, but brown-eyed. She was filled out in all the right places, and the wrong places as well. Maybe it was her personal style that attracted attention. Maybe it was the rainbow streaks in her pigtails, created by hours of dyeing and drying. Maybe it was the varied neon rainbow of her clothes and accessories. It might have also been the human skull that bounced along after her. It had a lolling, whitish-blue tongue of ectoplasm, the same material that glowed in its eye sockets. The orange collar on its trail of ghostly vapors proclaimed its name to be Yorick. The woman at the deli counter did not pay much attention to Lizzy or anything else. Her sagging face told the world that she was just killing time until time killed her. "What will you be having today?" Lizzy leaned up against the counter. "I'd like a regular-sized sub sandwich on a toasted sesame roll with mayonnaise, honey mustard, extra thin salami, iceberg lettuce, provolone cheese, Cooper sharp cheddar, and a little bit of vinegar." The grim-faced woman glared as if she'd been asked to hand over her left kidney. Lizzy went to grab the soft drink, side salad, and onion rings that came with a grab-and-go sandwich combo. She sipped her orange soda and fingered her rainbow bracelet, waiting for her order to come up. Lizzy Viscera always ordered the same exact sandwich. She looked to breakfast and dinner for variety. She picked sodas and sides on a whim. The sandwich was the perfect center of her day. It made lunch right. 217, number 217. Lizzy looked at her ticket and bounded up to the counter and snatched the sandwich. She hovered uncomfortably for a few moments. Her hands balanced the awkward load of soda, fries, and entree as she scanned the crowded tables until she spotted somebody she recognized. Lizzy bit into the sandwich and nearly choked. Instead of spicy, tangy salami and zesty, sweet honey mustard, her palate met with greasy, bland turkey and burning, bitter Dijon. She took a deep, soothing breath, patted her floating skull, and tossed the sandwich into the trash. The blonde college student strode back to the deli counter and repeated her order. Her words were articulated with a friendly smile and strained patience. The grim-faced woman showed neither remorse nor recognition. This time, Lizzy waited with more impatience and less enthusiasm. She opened the sandwich the moment it was ready and eyed its contents with dark suspicion. There was salami and honey mustard in it. Unfortunately, there wasn't anything else. No cheese, mayo, or tomato. Just meat, mustard, and a damp wheat bun. Lizzy repeated her requests, but each result was further from her wishes. When the sodden mass of apathy in a hairnet handed her a fish taco, she gave up on the deli counter. Lizzy Viscera dashed out of the dining hall. Her pet ghost skull left a comet tail of blue light as he struggled to keep up. There was still time to enjoy lunch, but she had to reach the mini-fridge in her dorm fast and avoid, "What's up, Princess of Midnight?" asked Pete. Lizzy cringed inwardly. Pete was a pale, black-clad boy who sat near her in statistics class. His greatest passions were loud music, horror movies where long knives were repeatedly thrust into the chests of buxom heroines, and the pursuit of Lizzy Viscera. Pete chatted her up whenever he could. His end of the conversation consisted of bemoaning his lack of a girlfriend, explaining why all his exes were sluts, and extolling the sexiness of dark magic and skulls. Her end of the conversation consisted of fumbling for polite excuses to be somewhere else. Lizzy didn't like Pete, but he was too civilized to justify her outright rudeness. Unfortunately, he was the kind of guy who took anything other than an explicit death threat as encouragement. "Pete, I'm Lizzy. I'm not a princess of anything, and you know I hate it when you call me that," she said, looking over his shoulder. Pete was a skinny guy, but he had an uncanny ability to block an entire doorway. He moved aside when Yorick snapped at his shins. "Sorry, there's just something important I have to—" "I really don't have time to talk now, bye!" Lizzy squealed. Her chubby thighs concealed powerful muscles, and every iota of them brought the dorm building into focus while Pete became a distant black and white speck. She swiped her keycard and held the door open while her pet ghost skull caught up. Her footsteps flooded the acoustic disaster of a hallway. She flickered through the suite-style common room faster than the rainbow glint in an inexpert camera shot. Lizzy Viscera swung open her mini-fridge. She slapped cheeses, sauce, and vegetables on sesame bread like a sushi chef dealing with rebellious lampreys. She gritted her teeth when she came to the salami package. The slices were fused together by congealed cholesterol. The plastic casing was the dense, stretchy variety with misleading "tear here" tabs that can only be opened by teeth or big scissors. She looked at the package, the sandwich, and her collectible Inuyasha wall clock. She sighed. The salami was mostly meat, which meant it was once part of a living pig. Lizzy locked her eyes on the lunch meat and muttered an incantation. She drew a rune on the package with her nectoplasm-laced gel pen to enhance the spell's focus and duration while she channeled vital force and will into the lifeless flesh. Unlike the greater necromancies, she could cast mind over meat without consulting her spellbook. She finished the spell by shouting its name. The salami glowed ultraviolet. The taste of blood and the smell of fresh snow wafted through the air. Processed meat twitched, wriggled, and burst free from its airtight packaging. Making a sandwich goes quickly when one of the ingredients actively participates. The undead lunch meat dabbed itself in mustard like a swimmer testing cold water, dragged Cooper Sharp into place, and nestled neatly between bread and lettuce once its duties were done. Yorick watched the mindless pork products carry out his master's will until Lizzy released the spell and let the Elan vital dissipate. Lizzy reached into the fridge. There was only one more item to make the meal complete. The crumpled squeeze bottle produced a droplet of mayonnaise and a rude noise. The empty container fell from her fingers. Yorick licked her face gently. If it wished, the ghost skull could lap away living energy with its ectoplasmic tongue, but Lizzy felt only a cool softness. She tickled Yorick's jawbone, reached into her pocket, and tossed him a neck crunchie. The skull gleefully snapped up the magical pet treat. Lizzy Viscera sprung to her feet, and her natural exuberance reasserted itself. There was a convenience store just off campus, and if she hurried, she could have a 15-minute lunch and still be on time for stat class. As she hauled her pleather-clad butt across the quad, lungs heaving, flesh bouncing, she considered the merits of alternative transportation. It was hard to justify a car when most points of interest were within a half-hour walk, and skates, scooters, and bicycles were all beyond her dexterity. Last semester, Lizzy considered animating a death mount, but decided against it. If she kept a flaming skeleton horse in the Keith Hoovermeyer Agriobiology Center stables, it would upset other livestock and ignite its bedding. Up ahead, Pete was walking towards her, calling her name. She avoided eye contact and jumped a few fences before resuming her course. Yorick lagged behind to blow an ectoplasmic raspberry. Lizzy staggered into the store, panting and sweating. She squatted down on a stack of crates and gently stashed Yorick in her backpack. He was a friendly little creature when you got to know him, but floating animated skulls tended to unsettle townies. After catching her breath, she rose to her feet, leaving the unzipped book bag under the "No backpacks, purses, or bags allowed on premises" sign. Lizzy wandered through the aisles in search of her goal. Her eyes were scanning the condiment section when a frazzled woman by the soda fountain drew a gun. Lizzy slumped and groaned. This was not her lucky day. "Shut up and listen to me!" the woman screamed. Her free hand was twisting frizzy brown hair. Her wild, bloodshot eyes twitched. "Everybody line up by the dairy products right now, or I will kill somebody! Don't you even think about leaving the building. I will shoot you in the gut and then stab you while you die. Do you hear that? Is that clear? Is that clear?" She didn't need to swear. Every word that came out of her mouth had the same impact and malice as 1,000 expletives. Customers shrieked. The counter clerk started to cry. Lizzy Viscera shook her head sadly. The woman glared at her. "Why aren't your hands up? Put your hands up! Put them up right now or I will stab you in the heart!" "Please just calm down," Lizzy said to the furious gunwoman. "You want me to calm down? You want me to calm down? I am calm. Do you want me to get angry?" "No, I don't want you to get angry," Lizzy said, trying not to stammer. "I don't want anybody to get hurt. What's your name?" The woman glared at Lizzy with dark suspicion. "Lisa Prolks. I'm Lisa Prolks, and I have a gun. I can kill you." "Yes, I think we've all noticed that," she replied, choking back a nervous laugh. She stared into the hateful, manic eyes. "Lisa, please don't shoot anybody." "What do you want? Why are you doing this?" It was harder with a living target, but the principle was the same. "I want some respect. These stupid people are just... She ground her teeth, inarticulate with rancor. Lizzy shut her eyes and concentrated. She tasted blood in the back of her throat. She smelled snow. She felt a gun barrel poke her forehead. "Hey, you should listen to me when I'm talking!" Lizzy Viscera cast mind over meat. Lisa blinked stupidly. Her arm went rigid and shot up. She gibbered in furious incomprehension as her fingers emptied the chamber into the ceiling and slackened. The weapon fell to the floor, and her hand poked her in the eyes. Lizzy emptied her willpower into the arm, but she couldn't keep it up for long. The native essence fought against the supernatural intrusion. Customers took advantage of the psycho's seizure and bolted. Nobody else saw the glowing skull glide towards Lisa's bare legs. She howled and lost her footing when the cold ectoplasmic tongue encircled her hamstrings. Lizzy sat on the half-paralyzed criminal and dialed 911 on her cell phone. She asked the clerk, cowering behind the counter, "Could you please direct me to the mayonnaise?" He uncurled from his fetal position to glance at the struggling lunatic, the phosphorescent death's head, and the chubby blonde student. "There's some low-fat Miracle Whip in aisle 2, but... Lizzy's face froze. "We don't have any mayo in stock," he finished. She let out a tired, desperate groan and rose to her feet. On her way out, she stomped on Lisa's fingers and kicked the gun away savagely. Okay, no mayo in the fridge, no mayo in the store. Fine, no problem. I'll just have to make mayonnaise from scratch. It can't be that hard, can it? Lizzy flashed a brittle grin of manic hopefulness at Yorick. The ghost skull whimpered and hid in her laundry bin. She rifled through her mini-fridge and desk drawers. A bottle of oil was nestled in among the Pocky and candy bars. The side of her cooler yielded a cute lemon-shaped juice container. Lizzy thought she was ready to go until she opened the egg carton. The expiration date was erased by moisture. She half expected a bunch of peeping chicks to greet her. It would certainly be more pleasant than the hairy mass of congealed salmonella. Lizzy pressed her fist in her mouth to muffle the scream. Monstrous roots of despair wrapped around her legs. Rabid pterodactyls of frustration swarmed in her head. The sword-shaped minute hand hadn't completed its circuit. The store was too far, but the agrobiology center wasn't. They had chickens, and chickens made eggs. Hope surged through Lizzy like a performance-enhancing drug. She set her face in a cheerful, if strained, expression of determination. She would not be denied her ideal lunch. Lizzy only remembered the mad scurry to the Hoovermeyer Center as flashes of color. There were green and brown plants, red and gray buildings, and the brief black and white blur that had tried to tell her something. Yorick darted about, excited by the strange life force patterns. Lizzy was not excited. She was close to hysterics. "I'm really sorry," said agroscience major Katie Fox. "But a pet poodle got in and killed our only laying hen." Her watery blue eyes darted between the student and the human skull. "I wish I could do something," she added. The words, "Please don't suck out my soul or feed me to a horde of zombies," didn't actually come out, but they were heavily implied. Lizzy massaged her temples and sighed. "I appreciate it, Katie, really. I guess I'll just have to skip lunch." Her stomach growled. What was she thinking? Skip lunch. She wasn't going to give up just because the whole universe was conspiring against her. "Miss Fox, how long ago did it die?" Lizzy asked. Her voice was even, but her eyes were wet with rekindled hope. "Oh, a few hours ago. I found it just after I came back from breakfast," Fox answered, shivering. "That's great. Super," she said, doing some quick mental math. "Could you show me the body?" "Are you sure you're allowed to do this?" Katie asked. She crouched back while leaning forward, as if trying to hide behind herself. "Totally sure," Lizzy said. "I checked in the student handbook." The dead hen lay on a sterile table. 3 candles around it burned with green flames. Both table and hen were covered with glistening, hastily sketched sigils in pastel colors. Lizzy's book of spells lay open nearby. Like most necromantic texts, it was bound in human skin and inked with blood. Unlike most necromantic texts, it was covered with rainbow stickers and Genpel glitter sketches. Lizzy read aloud from the list of ingredients. Runes drawn in necrotic ink, candles of green flames, and for the final seal, add a drop of human blood. "I'll just go and horse the feeds," Katie squealed as she bolted from the room. Lizzy glanced at the swinging door and shrugged. She drew a lukewarm flask of plasma from her pocket and tipped a measure of precious fluid on the poultry. She cranked up Reanimator on her iPod, rolled up her sleeves, and cast the spell. Lizzy Viscera came out of the room with a fresh egg and a triumphant smile. She was followed by Yorick and a disoriented chicken. She checked the clock. It was possible to mix in the lemon juice, really leg it to the dorm, and scarf the sandwich before class. Her bag of ingredients lay open on a desk. Lizzy pounced upon it. She pounded every ingredient into submission. She whipped, mixed, and stirred. She moved with the precision of a bomb squad and the intensity of a Viking berserker. Lizzy stuck a finger into the mixture and gingerly tasted it. She breathed a sigh of satisfaction, looked at the clock, and sped towards her dorm like a Technicolor sonic jet. Her path had the absolute minimal of horizontal deviation. She flew through the campus without regard for her surroundings. She plowed through shrubbery and across sidewalks. She scaled walls and jumped railings. She entered buildings in one door and shot out the other one, startling a class and diving through a window when the rear door was locked. She smacked, face first, into Pete. Bottles and books littered the ground as her backpack spilled its innards. Pete cushioned her fall, as much as a very thin person with lots of piercings and a spiked belt can. If she had chosen to innocently fall on top of any boy on campus, he would not have been in her top 10 list. That was a secondary thought. The single thing that burned white-hot in her mind was, is the mayonnaise safe? Hey, Lizzy. Sorry about that. Are you all right? Pete was half relieved and half disappointed when she rolled off him. Is it here? Did you see it? Yes! She squealed with manic glee, gripping the intact container. The bells on the campus non-denominational house of worship started chiming. Lizzy looked up at the clock tower and despaired. No, I can't ruin my perfect attendance! Professor Fish will come down on me like a ton of bricks if I eat during class. Lizzy, that's what I was trying to tell you. Pete got up and brushed off his shirt. Professor Fish is out sick with projectile ovulation, so intro stat got cancelled. Lizzy Viscera reeled. Yorick darted through the shade chasing a squirrel. Pete leaned over and asked if she was okay. They were meaningless. Her mind was bent upon processing this revelation. She repeated the words slowly. Lizzy looked at the mayonnaise in her hand. She looked at the clock. She sat and thought. She beamed. I've got an extra lunch hour! Sweet!
And so ends Lizzy Viscera and the quest for the perfect sandwich. Come tell us what you thought of the story in the forums. We'd love to hear from you. Cast of Wonders is a production of Wolfsbane Publishing. The editor is Barry J. Northern. The audio producer and host is Graham Dunlop. It's released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. Share it with all your friends and family, but don't change or sell it. Theme is Appeal to Heavens by Alexei Nov from musicalley.com.